So here we can see a close-up of the first sword I bought. When I joined the Derby group, the Derby Viking group, we were called Derby in 1999. We had a lovely group leader called Lynn, the infamous Lynn who made Anglo-Saxons trousers. And so I joined the group. I didn't have any medieval kit, any Viking kit at the time. So she got me some trousers and a tunic. And then she said, oh, you'd after a sword. And I said, well, yeah, please. And also a set of chainmail. She said, I can get you some mail, which is the mail I often sometimes wear on camera. So I said, Lynn, yeah, how much will there be? And I said, I can get you a sword for £100. And the mail suit, the ring shirt, will also cost you £100. And at the time I was working full time, so that was a day and a half's wages when I was just in my early 20s. And this is what I ended up buying. Now the blade itself is a Paul Binns blade, and she managed to get the blade just as the blade, but she needed to get a cross guard and a pommel put on, and luckily she knew somebody could do that for me, which was no extra cost. It was £100 all in, without a sheath or scabbard though. But I'm sure you agree, it is a very shiny blade, and it's a very beautiful blade, and it rings, which is a sign of good quality, and also a sign that it's been heat treated, and has the loaf style pommel, which is typical of the Anglo-Saxons, but then again also used by the Vikings, because the Vikings highly sought after blades. In fact, when they had a battle, and after the battle they didn't go for the gold and the jewellery, they went for the swords. And yeah, sometimes they took the swords apart and took the pommel off and took the all the mountings off and the cross guard, and then they put their own on. But this one has served me well for many years, and I'm sure you agree. Let's have a bit of a long distance look at it. It is a very nice sword. Now if you don't know who Paul Binns is, let's turn it over. You can look at the other side. He is a spectacular bladesmith, and what I like about this sword, it's so shiny, and I've not really done much work to it over the years. Yes, if you look at the handle, you can tell the handle and the leather, because it would have a wooden section underneath, and it would have been, when you're putting this on, when you're fastening this on and this on, you have to have the wood in between so it tightens it up, and then you leather bound it. So yes, it's got a bit of wear and tear on the leather, and as long as I keep it oiled, and it needs a little bit of repair here with a bit of glue, a bit of leather glue, that'll be fine. And then if you look at the end, it's also riveted over so it fastens it on. I'm sure you agree that there is a beautiful and lovely blade. Now I didn't have a scabbard for it, so that was one of the first things I made. I was very new to leather working at the time, so I made the sheath for it, not a scabbard. I made a sheath because a sheath is flexible, and I lined it with some nice wool, and I had a couple of loops on it so I could have it on my belt. And at one point I had a brass mounting at the end, but I think I had one on and it came off, so I didn't put it back on again. I could do with getting some mountings and finishing it off one day if I go to a nice trader and I find a set. But I sure you agree that is a lovely blade. Now how much would a blade and a sword like this cost you today? Well, you're looking easily £400 to £500, I would say, from Paul Binns, because he's a spectacular bladesmith. In fact, in my house I had the very book he brought back in the day, which was given to me by Tyrkir Thorkelsson, and it's got Paul Binns' name in it. He wrote his name in it, and that was the sword book. He learnt how to make swords, and I think that's a bit of fantastic history. And maybe in the future, when I got money and coin, I may invest in making some swords, you know, because you can get these laser cut out, and then we'll figure out a way to heat treat them ourselves, and we'll make the pommels and the cross guards. Now some people like a straight cross guard, and some people like it more curved like this. This one catches other swords, so it protects your hand, which is so essential when it comes to using a sword. So I'm sure you agree, that's nice. And another interesting and fascinating point about swords is when you do buy one, you need to have one where your hand fits in nicely and it's not too tight and not too loose. This is just perfect for me, because if you've got a tight fitting and a small gap for your hand, you're going to catch yourself on the pommel and you're going to catch yourself on the cross guard. So making sure it fits in your hand nicely and perfectly is very important. It's better to have it longer than shorter. And I've got a nice sword and it's too short and the pommel catches my wrist when I use it. And it'll be a shame to take it apart just to adjust it for myself. So yeah. But where do you buy a sword from? Well, if you can get one from Paul Binns, I would go for that choice. But you could also go for a little bit of a cheaper sword from a company called Armour Class. And normally you have to order one and wait 2 or 3 months before you get it. So that's also another option. You have re-enactment markets where you can go and look at traders and actually find a sword to your liking. It's another recommendation. Or you can go on Facebook where you have second-hand marketplaces. But that's always a little bit of a gamble because you don't know what you're getting. And especially with a combat sword, you want one which is well made and sings and rings, because that just says this is well treated. But often I get asked in the comments, and especially on TikTok, oh, why is your sword blunt? Why has it got no point at the end? Well, the reason why this is round here, and the reason why, if you look at the edge, it's curved over, so it's got a curve on it, a radius, is because it's a combat blade. It is designed purposely to be used in battle reenactments. And one of the things when you go along and join this hobby as a Viking, you have training officers and master at arms, and before every battle they will check your weapons. They will check your spear, they will check your sea axe, and they will check your sword for any burrs or any cuts. I had this at the very beginning where this sword had a little bit of a burr and I was told to go away and get a file and blunt it off. And then I learned my lesson. And of course they checked this bit as well, because this will get scarred over time, and you can see little dents where it's been cut and hit by blades. Because what you don't want to have any sharp edges sticking out which could hurt somebody. And if you're in a good society and a good group, somebody should do that at every battle. Especially if you're having 3 or 4 battles at a weekend, they will check before every battle to make sure that your sword is blunt and there's no sharp edges. Also the pommel will be checked as well. They'll run their fingers across and they'll say, well, yeah, that's fine, there's nothing sharp about it, there's no little burrs. And of course the better the blade is made, then the less that's going to happen. If you've got a blade which is a little bit soft, it's going to burr up very easily, and you'll be forever working on it and forever getting a little file. So one thing you do need to take with you is a hand file, just so that you can file down your burrs, because you don't want to be told you can't take that onto the battle because it's got a sharp edge. And another thing we never do is tape a sharp weapon on your kit. You always disarm them, put them in your tent before the battle, and then when you go back out and the battle is over, you can get your sharp sea axe and put it back on your boat, because another thing you don't want to be pulled up for. But yeah, I think that's lovely. I love the blackness here. That's just the grinding. It's been heat treated and gone black, and then it's just been polished up, and you can see the edge, you know, you can see the wear and the tear. And I've used this sword a lot. It's my favourite sword I used to fight with, and I'm very lucky I own quite a few swords. So yeah, let me know what you think of this video, and is it better to have a dull sword or a shiny sword? Well, I'm sure you agree, a shiny sword looks way better on camera, and you can also tell that's very, very straight as well. So yes, let's just pull away for the thumbnail without too much in the background, and I hope you've enjoyed this video and found it useful. A bit of a closer look at this sword. So goodbye from me. Love you lots, guys, from Braggy.